So, congratulations on making it to your first creative project. We're going to be talking about the CD cover project, and not only will we be discussing how to do this on a technical level, the most important thing we're going to discuss is just to remind you once again to implement your design fundamentals that you've been going over up until this point on the previous lessons. There's been a lot of design fundamental tutorials that haven't forced you to save a file, but they've just been informational. This is where you get a chance to prove that you went through those and that you learned something from them. So to start off, many people may not even own a CD cover, a CD at their house, I should say, an actual CD in a jewel case. A jewel case is the term for the conventional CD cover. Now, CDs have been around for many, many years. They first came out in the 1980s as a replacement for LPs. Now, in more recent years, LPs have made a comeback, but in the music scene, CDs are still very much alive, as are MP3s. But a lot of you out there may have only grown up downloading MP3s, and maybe you've never touched an actual CD before. So here's what it looks like. Here's the back of the CD. This is the spine, okay? This is the front cover, okay? We're not actually going to be printing it out or using the plastic, but you need to understand what this would eventually become from the digital file. All right, so here's another display of that in case you need more input. This is the front, the outside. So again, the front's here. The back is over here. This is the inside panel, which we'll not be doing, and this is the inside of, what would some people would do in a photo for the CD label itself, and we're not going to do that. We're simply doing the outside, front, and back. All right, so to do that, the first thing you want to do is open up the template file. So I'm just going to go directly to my Finder window over here. Finder is the terminology if you're not familiar with it for the Macintosh system. It's so if you're using Windows, which many of you will be, just going to go locate, of course, your folder. And so in this case, it's going to be in Module 6. And this is the CD assignment sheet, which you need to read in conjunction with listening to this lesson. But this will give you the specs on the CD cover as well, technical specs. But the CD template, the Photoshop file that you're going to use is right here. Okay, so I'm going to open this up with Photoshop. In the case, I'm using CS6 as I record this, but any version will do. All right, so now this is the template. So as you saw there, the back cover here is this, the bottom part. And believe it or not, there's nothing more disheartening when I get students turning in CD covers where they put the back up here and the front down here. Okay, this is the back. That's why it has the wings here on the side. This is the spinal column. So going back again to the other image we looked at, this is the spine right here. There's one on the other side, and this is the back. Okay, so I'll be totally clear on that. Don't want to see any more of those turned in. All right, so this is the front. Very simple. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to my layers panel, and you see it's all on one layer. It's all flattened onto one layer. Okay. So now you can use this in a variety of different ways. I'm going to tell you what I think is the best way to work with this, and you can take it or leave it. It's up to you. But in my opinion, you want to implement layer masks. So if you're still uncomfortable with layer masks, go back to layer masks and go over them again, because they're your best friend when it comes to this project, in my opinion. And if you've never taken the opportunity to use these before, take advantage now. We went over, what they are in the layers lesson, but you have these groups, okay, these little folders. Very, very useful for this project. All right, because remember, I can take this folder and put stuff in it. So if I have a lot of photos, and by the way, I've given you lots of photos to use in your project, and I put them inside of that 6 folder. So I'm going to bring it up once again. Here it is. And this folder here called Photos for CD Cover, you may have different photos than I'm going to be looking at here, but I've given you some to work with most people don't use these. They're not the best images, but I just put them there in case, some people didn't have access to photos, or if you just wanted a few to try out. So I'll go ahead and use them now. So I'm going to take this mud texture, for example, and I'll open this up. Okay. I'm going to open it again with Photoshop CS6, and there's my mud texture. But you notice it's a separate file. Okay. I've got 3 files open right now. The demo I was showing you, the template, and now this. So I'll go ahead and close out the demo now. We don't need that anymore. Don't save it. All right, and now over here, this mud texture, it's in a separate file, so I need to get it into here. All right, so one way I can do that is if it's nested like it is here, I can just drag this out and make it a separate window, which I kind of like to do. I think it's easier. And then I can take the move tool and just drag it directly into that other project. Okay, so now it makes a separate layer by default. Remember to name your layers. Call this mud. And now here it is. You got this big photo floating on top of your template. Now it went straight into the group, but if yours didn't for some reason, just remember you can drag it into that group. Okay, so why not give it a name? Let's call this the front cover. Okay, well, I'll just call it front. That's fine. Cover. All right, so now how do we get this to fit in there? Well, some people, it's your first time using Photoshop creatively. Maybe you might just start thinking, okay, I'll use the move tool. I'll use my show transform controls, and I'll start dragging it down to scale it. Bad idea. It'll work, but why limit yourself? Let's go ahead and make a layer mask instead. So to do that, I'm going to disable the visibility of that layer. I'm going to come up to my folder, my group, and I'm going to make a layer mask. Okay, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to make a selection. In this case, I'll use that magic wand tool that we looked at before. Selections. I'm going to select the background layer, the template, and I'm going to just click once inside to select that rectangle. Now, if you don't want to use the magic wand tool, you can use other selection techniques, rectangular marquee if you want, whatever. This is just the fastest way. I'm going to come back up to that front cover, select it, and turn it into a layer mask. There it is. Now I've got this black area here and the white area there. That's a layer mask. That means that anything inside of that folder is only going to be visible in that little window. So if I turn the mud back on now, take the move tool, select the mud layer. Okay. Now as I drag this, look what happens. You see how that window stays put. It stays locked down. I'm cutting this area. That's not what I want. So I'm going to undo that. The reason that happened is because of this link. You see this link that's forcing the layer mask to be locked in position and go with the photos. I don't want that. Unlink it. Take that chain link off. Just click it. Now when I come down to mud and I start moving it around, whoops, my bad. Again, I grabbed the layer mask and I was moving the layer mask. I do not want to select that layer mask. I just want to select this layer. And the reason that's happening is because I've got auto select turned on. So if that's doing the same thing for you, get rid of it because it will cause problems for you. Okay. This will not allow Photoshop now to jump up and select that layer mask. It forces Photoshop to stay on the mud no matter where I click. Much better. Okay, now I'm going to drag it up. And you can see now I'm freely just scrolling and throwing it around and moving it into position without any problems. See that? The beauty of this is I have the freedom to move around, zoom in here and take a look, and it goes edge to edge on my template, and I don't have a problem. I can reposition this however I want to use it. Now I'm ready to start adding adjustments to it, start, bleaching it out, or start using this as a texture element to throw more photos on top of. So I'm not going to keep going down that path because, again, this is not me showing you how to do something for the first time all semester. You're going to be the one creating. You're going to be using the design fundamentals. Okay? So once again, the design fundamentals are key here. This is a chance for you to show me that you understand what a texture is, that you understand how to use a texture and how to make sure that it doesn't compete for attention with your foreground elements. Okay? Your main photograph, your logo, your text work. Speaking of type, this is a chance to show me all those things you learned with the type tools as well as the principles you learned in typography, the concepts you've learned with balance and contrast. Okay, these things are the kind of things you want to showcase in this, even though it's a creative project, even though there are other things to consider in the project in terms of mood, fitting the music, in terms of color schemes, in terms of style. It all comes back to those design fundamentals, showcasing what you learned there. All right, getting back to the technical stuff. So again, you could do the same thing with the backside. So what I would do in that case, make another group. We're going to call this obviously back. And make another layer mask. So I'm going to be selecting the backside this time. Whoops. Again, I forgot to choose the background layer. There we go. Now I'm going to come back to the back cover and add another layer mask. There we go. Now obviously it's down lower. Unlink it. Don't forget that. Unlink it so it doesn't move. And now we're ready to start throwing images into that back cover area and moving those around. Now, I just showed you how to do it, so I'm not going to do it again. But the side panels, I would recommend the same thing. I think it's just easier. Why try and make your life harder? Just do a side panel version of this. Let's do left panel. Okay, and we'll do the same thing there. No big deal. We'll come back to the background. We'll select it. And we'll make another layer mask for that left panel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a layer mask. And you see it's just a little strip, but now I can start to work with that. So again, this is just an organizational technique that can make your life a lot easier in doing this project. And if you start to get too many layers out of it, just collapse these and they'll get out of your way. Don't forget though, if you want to experiment and you want to start to have more than one version of the front, more than one version of the back, you can always copy the group. Another nice thing about using groups, I can come down and duplicate the group. And so I've got a copy of it. And if I want to throw that group away, it's just like throwing a layer away. It works really quick and easy. So this is the technical way you want to approach this project. Now it's about, choosing an artist. Make sure you include the track listing. Make sure you include all the credits and the details for the design of obviously the name of the band or artist, the title of the disc. And the track listing, of course, goes on the back. The front cover is a little more open, a little more of an opportunity to showcase your design skills. But in both cases, you're showcasing design fundamentals. You're just doing it in slightly different ways. Here's a little more breathing room, a little more negative space maybe because you don't have as much text to deal with. But the back is a great opportunity to showcase those text skills, to showcase how to use type as a shape. Okay, remember those type lessons, type 1 basics and type 2 basics. How do you use type as a shape element? Think back to your design fundamentals. Maybe rewatch those if you didn't go to them too clearly the first time. All right. Now, on top of that, if you need some inspiration, I would encourage you to go to the website. I'm bringing up the Art192 website here as it looks as I record this. It may look vastly different now, but there will always be a student gallery link, and that's the link I'm at now. And regardless of what it looks like as you go through this, take a look at it. You'll see lots of different designs. Now, most of these are not CD covers, but there are some. And take a look at what's there. In this case, Brian used an inverted template, but he got it right. So the front cover, it's down here. That doesn't matter, but what matters is the wings and the back cover are where he's put the track listings, and so he got it right in that respect. That's fine. But your template is right side up, so it's not going to be a big difference there. All right, let's go back, and I'll just show you a few more of these. So you can see that in what these students have done successfully is they've created a mood. They're using their Photoshop skills, yes, but they're paying attention to design fundamentals. Look at the contrast here with Coldplay, the lettering. Both black on blue, blue on black. Notice the way he's using balance, this asymmetrical balance here. Notice the dynamic tension from the right to the left. All right, notice the use of negative space, the black bars at the top and bottom, and how he's using that to go ahead and showcase the type, make it easier to read. Look at the back and how it coincides, the design style coincides with the front, without being exactly the same as the front. he's taken the concept of the front and embellished it. He's added to it, okay? So it's not just a repetition, but at the same time, in terms of color, in terms of the way he's using the space, there are echoes of the front cover. So they tie together. It feels like a cohesive package. And you want to keep that in mind. When you're designing for a package, it's not just about making the front completely different from the back. It's not a chance for you to sort of take it in a totally different direction. You want to make both front and back come together as a cohesive whole, as a cohesive part of the design, something that works together as a group. Notice the way he's using the track listing as a design shape, as this stair stepping, and he's using it to accent the diagonal nature of the photographs on the back. So all these things come into play. All right, look at a couple more here. And as you go through, you'll see different approaches to the projects, different styles. Here's one here, eraser heads. Notice again the echo of the color from front to back. The green, though the photos are completely different in nature, the colors ties it together. Okay, so you don't have to use the same photographs. I'm not even suggesting you do that, but he's using that. Notice the use of texture. At first, when you look at it, it just seems like a random pattern there on the front. But then you look closely and you realize, wow, he's made this texture out of the repetition of their heads. Okay, so there's texture elements, there's foreground elements. They don't compete with each other. They work together to create a unified whole in the design. Notice the way he's using type. Notice that he's got a contrast in font, but also a contrast in size. He's paid attention to leading, so the spacing between the letters is accurate. Okay, there's not big gaps, or there's not letters all crouched together. Notice the way he's using, again, the track listing as a shape element on the back here to echo the shape of the lips and to basically work in harmony as a shape element with the other shapes on the image. So ask yourself, what are the shapes here? You've got a rectangle here, but then you've got circular organic shapes here dominated by the teeth and the eraser on the pencil, and then echoed over here by the text. So they work together, but there's a balance act going on between these different shapes and how they interact with each other. Okay, maybe one or two more. This is another project, Job Garcia here, did John Mayer, and you notice the way he's using, again, color to tie the front and back together, but it's just that shade of brown that ties it together. The photos, the design's very different, but he feels unified. Notice the way he's integrating a logo type of the word John and his last name Mayer here into the package. Notice how he's using line to create this interesting shape here, this neat and organized collection of numbers. And you notice the way he's using text, how he's emphasizing one letter or one word in each line and combining that with the offset in color. So there's a color scheme going on here in front and back, white, gold, and brown. And then there's a dark brown that complements it. So this all not only helps it feel unified and professional and clean, but at the same time, it helps give the viewer a sense of mood. It gives a sort of an antique nature to the design, but at the same time, it feels energetic and lively by his use of text and his playful, sizing of the different words and letters, and the fact that he's not just repeating the same thing over and over again, but giving us some interesting placement, some interesting balance between these shape elements. So what are the shape elements? You've got the photograph, this big oval on the left, offset by the smaller but more contrasty, more vibrant shape elements here. You've got, in terms of the text, the track listing is a cohesive whole. The logo over here in the right corner is another whole. And then the smaller text down here, the clarifications, the credits. All of this works together, and you notice even the side panels seem to fit. They have, again, a repetition of the font, the color scheme. It's all consistent to create a nice cohesive whole in the design. These are some of the things you want to look for, but again, I can't stress enough, go back over those design fundamentals, because that's really what I'm looking for here in conjunction with how you handle the mood and the way that you go about using creativity to draw us into this cover, to think creatively, give us something unique and original and interesting, but at the same time using your design skills to make it clean, organized, balanced, and easy to read, easy to understand, easy to digest. Think of visual communication as you go through this creative project first and foremost. All right, good luck with it.